What if the most important step in the history of beer was not inventing it, but learning how to control it? We've already explored beer's ancient history, from early fermented cereals to Mesopotamia and Egypt. All along, for thousands of years, beer had this little problem. It was alive, and the microorganisms making it could also ruin it. In medieval Europe, brewers flavored their beer with different mixtures of herbs. Then, between the 14th and 15th centuries, hopped beer spread increasingly across northern Europe. Hops did far more than add bitterness. Their hop acids suppressed many of the bacteria that spoil beer, helping it last longer and making production easier to standardize. People had begun to tame beer. But another problem remained: temperature. Warmer conditions made spoilage harder to control, so brewers learned to exploit the cold. In Bavaria, brewing became increasingly associated with the colder months, and in 1553, Duke Albrecht V formally restricted brewing to the period between autumn and spring. Beer fermented slowly in the cold and was stored in cool cellars. Later, brewers also relied on natural ice. And without knowing it, brewers were creating an environment that favored cold-adapted microorganisms. Eventually, one hybrid yeast would transform beer: Saccharomyces pastorianus, the lager yeast. It combined Saccharomyces cerevisiae, associated with ale, with the cold-tolerant Saccharomyces eubayanus. Its exact origin is still debated, but brewers had selected cold-adapted yeasts long before they understood what yeast actually was. That fermentation, however, generally produced dark lagers. In 1842, in Pilsen, Josef Groll created a pale golden one. Pilsner was born, but beer was still partly at the mercy of biology. In the 19th century, science finally entered the brewery. Louis Pasteur investigated fermentation and showed that unwanted microorganisms were responsible for many of the diseases that spoiled beer. Then, at the Carlsberg laboratory in Copenhagen, Emil Christian Hansen went one step further. In 1883, he isolated and propagated a pure brewing yeast culture. For the first time, brewers could begin a fermentation with a selected microorganism instead of an unpredictable mixture. And one last obstacle was falling: winter. Artificial refrigeration freed lager from caves, ice, and the seasons. Cold fermentation could now be reproduced inside the brewery whenever it was needed. And that may be beer's true legacy. For centuries, brewers thought they were shaping a drink. Instead, they were shaping life itself. So, long before biotechnology had a name, beer had already become one of its earliest experiments.